Hi, I'm Ed, and today we're going to show you how to make dry cured German bacon. So let's start with the basics. Now, before we can actually create the bacon, we're going to have to cure the bacon, then smoke the bacon, and then you can eat the bacon. Simple steps, right? Here is what you want to start with before anything else. Number one, we have a large pan dedicated to the task of holding on to pork belly. Inside the pan, you'll see there are these removable drying racks, actually. And what they're going to do is hold the pork belly up above the top of the pan so that we get as much liquid out of the bacon as we can before we go to the process of smoking. What we're going to use to cure is sea salt, and we'll show you how to do that as things go. And then there's a finish. I use brown sugar. And now the other step that's really important before you even get here is that you have to find a butcher shop that will sell you a whole fresh pork belly. You can see I just got this one from Lake Geneva Country Meats. If you're wondering how much it costs, they sell theirs for $3.99 a pound, and this one weighs about 10 pounds. Now, how big should you go? Well, it all depends how big your pan is, how big your refrigerator is, how big your smoker is. The good people at Lake Geneva Country Meats, being the fine quality butcher that they are, will cut it to any size you want. So if you want to start by trying 1 pound, they'll be glad to cut this into 1 pound sections. They'll be glad to sell you the entire thing. I bought an entire one, and we'll start by opening it up so that you can see what it looks like, and we'll get into what we call day one process. Now, for those of you wondering what bacon looks like before it becomes bacon, this is it. This is a whole pork belly. And as you saw on the label before, it's about 10 pounds worth. And that's as big as I dare go, just because of the size of the pan that I have and the room I have in my refrigerator for storing this for a few days until it gets cured. You'll notice there is this side, which is the meat side, and the opposite side is the fat side. This is going to come into play in a few seconds as I show you the first step, which is applying salt. Okay, this is our first step in the process. We've unwrapped everything. This is the time when we want to make sure we're observing safe food handling procedures. I'm not going to cover those right now, but this is a raw piece of meat, which can be potentially dangerous if it's not handled the correct way. There are many, many sources online that will allow you the instructions and the knowledge to be able to handle the meat properly. We want to make sure that we don't touch cooked foods with hands after we've touched the raw meat. I mean, that is a basic. But here's our first step. So I have the meat on top of the cooling racks. So there's a separation between the pan to catch the juices that drip off and the meat itself. We're not going to be reusing the juices, but do be careful. You don't want to have those spilling while this is curing in the refrigerator. What we're going to start doing now is the salt curing process. Now, I'm curing with salt for two reasons. Number one, I want flavor, and I want to preserve the food for as long as possible. There are several diseases that can crop up, several bacteria that can be a problem if you don't properly cure the meat and don't refrigerate it. At no time do I recommend not refrigerating the meat. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do once this is all smoked is I'm going to quarter the meat, and I'm going to wrap up 4 separate sections to put in the freezer. And then I will be able to pull them out, thaw them for 1 day, and slice them and use them as I need. And we're going to start by sprinkling. You can see I've got the wedge open just a little bit there. And we're going to sprinkle so that we're covered, I'd say, 50% on the fat side. We're starting on the fat side with the salt. You will get some salt running off, so be prepared to clean up. Do this in a place where you can clean up rather readily. You don't want to reuse the salt once it's touched the bacon. You just want to clean it up, throw it away, take care of it that way. So we take a look at how much salt I have covered here. The salt's also going to help draw liquid out of the meat. As I stated before, this is our day one process. You should be anticipating about 5 to 6 days, depending how dry you like your bacon, before you'll be able to actually enjoy the bacon that you've made. This for me is a Saturday, which means that in 5 days, which is when I generally like to smoke the bacon after 5 days of curing. So we're talking Saturday to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So by Thursday, I'll be able to put this in the smoker. But as far as day one is concerned, we're pretty much finished. Well, that's a tight fit right there. This is the bacon and where it's going to sit for 24 hours inside of the refrigerator wide open. Make sure it's not going to drip. Make sure you have a good lip on that pan. And tomorrow I will show you how much juice we've accumulated, and we will flip the bacon and start the process all over again. Well, good morning, campers, and welcome to day 2. This is what our bacon looks like right now. You can see that most of the salt still remains intact, and this is something that's going to commonly happen on the fatty side of the bacon. What I'm going to do now is flip it over, and I don't know that I'll be able to do this one-handed, so let me give this a try and see if we can lift this up. Okay, so you see there are a few drops of water down there, and again, these are juices that are coming out of the meat side of the bacon. Let's lift this up. Okay, so there we go, and this is what the back side of our bacon looks like right now. I want to make sure everything's inside the pan so we catch all the drippings, and now we have a bunch of salt we need to put on the meat. Now, like before, we're going to try and cover about 50% of the meat with the salt. We don't want to overdo the salt. This is not only good for flavor, but preservation. And you will see tomorrow that the meat side of the bacon will look nothing like the fat side of the bacon after one day of being salted. So let's get that on there, and then we'll stick it back in the fridge. And that is all we really need to do for today. And we are back in the refrigerator for day 2. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is where you are. Insert the proper greeting there. It is day 3 of us curing our bacon. Now, remember I told you that after the salt was applied, we probably wouldn't see too much of it on the surface anymore. And indeed, where the meat is sort of fatty, you still see some of the grains of salt. But where the meat grain is exposed, the salt is pretty much gone. Also notice we have a pool of liquid that's actually come up on top of the bacon. And that's something we want to get rid of. So for the time being, I just want to do this. I just want to grab onto the meat and send the juices down into the collecting pan down below. And again, we're not reusing those juices. We just want to make sure they get out of there so we get a nice dry piece of bacon when we're done. It's day 3, which is the day where we put brown sugar on. Remember, day 1, we salted the underside of the bacon, which is the fat side, left that up. Day 2, we flipped it over, salted the other side, let that soak in, and now it's day 3. So we're going to take about a half a cup of brown sugar and apply it to the surface of the meat. And since I'm doing this on my own, I will put the camera down and get right back to you. We're just crumbling the brown sugar all over the top of the meat, and then we'll actually start spreading it around to make sure it's an even coverage. I don't want too much brown sugar in here because then the meat's going to get too sweet, and that's really not a good piece of bacon. You just want that little bit of flavor, almost like a maple flavor when it gets down to it, but it's not overpowering. You're really relying on the taste of the pork and the salt that's been added to it. That's what's really going to give your bacon some good flavor. And then the meat goes back in the refrigerator. This is the end of the process for day 3. All right, welcome to day 4. You can see that most of the brown sugar that we put on yesterday on day 3 has soaked into the meat. We still have a little bit left there. And now this is the best day of curing the bacon because we do absolutely nothing. Just leave it in the fridge and let it go. All right, good morning and welcome to day 5. I've got the bacon out of the refrigerator and I have it in the sink because we need to rinse off any leftover salt or brown sugar and clean out the pan because it is time to smoke this bacon. So let me get her cleaned off. By the way, the fat side is going to have a lot more residual salt on it than the meat side. So make sure you get that off because otherwise it tends to burn. It'll give some bad discoloration to the outside of the bacon as well. And nobody likes a bad looking piece of bacon. It is a cold, beautiful morning here. Great day to smoke some bacon. So what I've done is I've added wood chips, wood chunks, and this is the kind of bag you can find them in at Home Depot and other home improvement stores and such, and I'm sure there are many other places that are selling them these days. You want at least 1 hour of soak on the chunks of whatever wood you're choosing. I've done apple before. Hickory tends to work out the best. But what you want to really make sure is you get at least 1 hour, because you don't want these chunks of wood burning when they get in the smoker. You want them just to stay smoldering for a good amount of time. So the bacon, the pork belly is inside. It's been washed. All the salt is off of it. It's drying right now, and now I'm going to go start up the charcoal. All right, I've arranged a small section of briquettes and soaked them up with some fluid. And you might be asking yourself why I'm using charcoal to smoke. Why don't I have a device that's dedicated to smoking? I'll be honest, it was economy, because I didn't know when I started smoking bacon whether or not I was going to keep doing it. So I simply used an old Weber grill that I had, and it worked out pretty well. So I've never done it any other different way. Small pile of charcoal. We're not looking to cook the bacon. We're just looking to smoke it, right? Get it hot enough. We're looking for 150 degree internal temperature on the meat before it's done. Now over here you can see I have one tray that is absolutely dedicated to, and it's tremendously filthy, full of smoke and grease. But that's what I use to put the pork belly. I used to put it on. It's a little cold out here, so I may misspeak from time to time. I also have my internal thermometer ready to go, because I'm looking for 150 degrees on the inside of the pork belly before we're done. Ideally, we're going to get about 4 hours of smoke. And if we don't hit that 150 degrees, that's absolutely fine, because we'll take it inside and put it in the oven and just make sure it gets up to that 150. So, time to light the charcoal. All right, the charcoal is lit. I have my bucket of wood chunks out here. Hopefully they won't freeze too badly before we get coals that are ready. I just wanted to talk quickly about how to control the heat. Now my Weber has vents in the bottom. You can see they're about halfway open, and of course the old dial vent up at the top. We want to hold the smoke in, but we don't want to extinguish the fire. So I keep those vents on the bottom open halfway, and I keep the vent on the top barely open, just a little bit of a crevice there to let a little bit of the air out. But again, where you're going to get that flavor in the bacon is by smoke staying on it all the time. So we're going to give this a little while to let the charcoal catch, and then we'll be back out with the bacon. Well, it certainly hasn't gotten any warmer out here, but about a half hour later, my coals are nice and they're burning. They're doing a good job there. Nice and warm. I have my thermometer now inserted into the thick portion of the pork belly, and you can see the internal temperature right now is 46 degrees, and I'm aiming for 150. This is a handy device to have. This particular meat thermometer, which I also got at Lake Geneva Country Meats, actually has an alarm that will go off when you hit the desired temperature, and it has a magnet on the back, which makes it very easy to set up on the display. And again, if I don't reach that 150 degrees after I'm done applying the smoke, I can always take this whole device inside and use it in my oven inside as well. So now it's time to layer the hickory on top of the charcoal. There's no real secret to layering the hickory on top. You just want to make sure that you cover the charcoal with it, and make sure you shake off any extra water. And I know some of you are going to be saying, well, aren't you putting out the fire? No, we are actually not. Evidence of experience teaches us that this fire will be very hot for a very long time, unlike my hands, which are going to be cold for a very long time now. Make sure we got even small pieces in there. Now you can already see an abundant amount of smoke, and steam is coming out. The steam is handy because it will keep the meat moist while it's smoking. All right, the pork belly is on top of its grate that would be catching any drippings, because we don't want to get a grease fire going here. So always make sure you have something to catch any grease that's coming off. We have the digital thermometer in place, and now it's time to cover it up. Again, I've got the vents here barely open, just want to make sure that we allow air out as needed to keep that fire going. And to make it more convenient, let me take the thermometer, stick it right there on top, so it's going to be easy for me to come out and read. Again, we're at 44 degrees internally. We're heading for 150. So now we get to go inside and relax a little bit. I'm going to check on this in about 2 hours. See you then. The sun's a little higher in the sky because 2 hours has gone by for us, and we have an internal temperature of 107 degrees. We still have some smoke. Let's see how it's looking in there. Okay. Well, we're getting some good color. It's getting that good golden sort of brown to it. And we need to give her a little more. So let's put the lid back on. Avoid the temptation to look at it too often, and check in another hour. The sky is blue. It's been an hour. Let's see how we're doing here. So I'm at 131 degrees now. Very close to my goal. Let's check how the bacon's looking. You know what? That color looks pretty good to me. I think I am going to take this one out and I am going to put it in the oven to finish. So join me inside, won't you? All right, we're inside and I have my oven set to about 200 degrees. And you can see 131 is still what I have temperature, and we're just going to put that bacon in there and let it slow warm until we get this up to temperature. And look what we have. We have got 150 degrees on our cooking temp. So we're going to shut off the oven and we're going to take a look at this. Yeah, the house certainly smells a lot better than it did when I came in. So next step is to actually take this out and put it in the refrigerator to let it settle down, to let the temperature stabilize before I do my final step, which is to cut it into quarters and put it in the freezer. All right, and there it will sit. I'm going to give it at least 12 hours inside the refrigerator just to let the temperature stabilize. I am a firm believer in what I learned when I was the chairman of the McHenry County Board of Health, and that is hot food should stay hot and cold should stay cold. And bacteria really starts to grow and do its damage when you've got sort of this room temperature on the meat. So I do want to get this down to temperature as quickly as possible. I want to get it down where the bacteria won't be active and won't be growing. And then we will quarter it up and get it in the freezer. My dog is poking her head around the corner because she knows there is bacon in the house. Welcome to day 6. All that's left for me right now is to quarter this and wrap it in cellophane. I keep it in the freezer until it's needed, and then I slice it to the thickness that I prefer. Some of you might be asking, why quarter it? Why not just slice it the way it is? Well, as you can see, this is a very long slice to have to make to keep a uniform thickness on the slice. I have looked into buying a meat slicer, but most of the ones that are for consumer grade or for the household use are very short travel, so I'd have to be cutting these in half anyway, and it's just a little more manageable. And once I have it in the freezer, I cut it and use it as needed. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. I hope that you will go out and try this all on your own and figure out what tastes good to you. Thanks for watching. Well, good morning. This is Ed, and this is kind of a follow-up. It's a few days since I've actually smoked the bacon that you guys were along with, and I have run out of bacon. So what I did was took one of the quarters of the pork belly that I turned into bacon out of the freezer, let it sit in the refrigerator for 24 hours, and unwrapped it, and I've just sliced it. And something to keep in mind, since this is 1/4, this edge and this edge were cut away from the rest of the pork belly, which means that, let's get my hand in the shot there, this edge and this edge were exposed to a lot of smoke because they were on the edge of the pork belly when it was smoking. The reason I say this is this little end piece right here, which you can see is not cut. This is one of the edges that was exposed to the smoke, but because this entire surface and this surface and this surface and this surface were all attached to the smoke for 3 hours, this is the really flavorful part of the bacon. Now, if you're doing baked beans or some sort of like a split piece soup where you need a really flavorful piece of bacon, this end piece is the one you want to keep. Other than that, slice your bacon to whatever thickness you like. I'm using this serrated knife up here. I find it works the best. And then you fry it up as you would any other bacon. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, click share, click like, and subscribe to my channel. So the next time I smoke something, you're going to find out about it.